located in Sheffield, Iowa, and Governor, I'm deeply honored to be chairing your State of Iowa DOGE Task Force. And also, this is going to be carrying out your continued vision of leveraging bold solutions from a comprehensive and a proactive perspective. In a similar fashion, while serving on the Governor's Economic Recovery Advisory Board, we also researched, developed, and prioritized areas of advancement that the state should focus on. This included implementing standardization review of regional maps, centralizing data, and elevating the state's continuous improvement practices, many of which, as the Governor had already said, have also been listened to but also acted on by the Governor, the legislature, and the agencies as well. In manufacturing, we continually do this every day. We move layouts, we switch machines different pieces are made on, and we also integrate technology to reduce heavy workloads or duties, which all leads to a better employee engagement. I've also led 6 acquisitions at SUCUP, and they involved evaluating and integrating the processes and resources of multiple organizations, all the while still bringing innovative solutions like an on-site health clinic and a childcare center on campus. And that is to keep constantly evolving with the labor market as well as the technological advancements. Establishing the Iowa DOGE Task Force is a natural step in continuation of all of these principles. I trust that the outcome of this task force will tangibly be felt by all Iowans when they interact with their state government. And Iowans, we need to do this with you too. So, this government is by the people, for the people, but it's also funded by the people. So we need to honor your hardworking dollars and put them to work the best we can. We have created an X account at Iowa DOGE, where that is one way we can receive your input. We also will be establishing a public portal for the task force to collect and also receive feedback and recommendations. You can help us reduce bureaucracy, cut red tape, and also optimize your government. We look forward to taking a comprehensive and view to really grasp how high we can have the efficiency in government. It's about leveraging the resources in a way that optimizes and reduces spending at the same time, which should produce a government working with the people while still innovating, sustaining solutions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Emily, and I couldn't be more excited about this task force and the energy and expertise that you bring to the table. I'm so grateful to you and the members of the task force for really stepping forward to serve in this capacity. I think you bring a lot of expertise to the table. You, like you said, you live it every single day, so I really appreciate you stepping up and engaging in this manner. In closing, I want to note that the task force will hold its first meeting within 60 days and then submit its report and recommendations within 180 days of their first meeting, so that we can prepare to implement its recommendations in time if we so choose for the 2026 legislative session. So with that, I'm excited to sign the executive order, and then we'll open it up for questions on topic. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions on topic, and then we'll take other questions after that.
Governor, do you have a goal as far as like a dollar number or percent of?
So, I want the expertise to come to the table, encourage Iowans all across the state to look at different ideas that they may have. And I want to box them in with set, things that I want them to do. There'll be broad buckets, but Emily has a lot of ideas and a lot of suggestions, and I really want them to get in there and just continue to build the efficiencies. One of the things that has really helped is because of the realignment now, we have good visibility into the agencies, and so that's allowed us to be at a point where we maybe can take a look at additional ways that we can be better at what we do. And especially when you put it in the context of AI and automation and just the advancement that we're seeing in technology, we need to think about workforce programs. How are we operating today? And when we think about technology and AI, what do we need to be doing to train that workforce for the future? So just broad range. We'll have three, general buckets, but I don't want to restrain them in ideas that they may have to make us better.
Governor, will the task force have any powers to actually make or direct changes in government, or will everything have to go through you or the legislature?
No, it'll go through us. If you look back on my time as governor, I did it with the children's mental health reform. I did it with public health and human services. I did it with Future Ready Iowa. I stand up an executive order, bring stakeholders together, give them a kind of a broad direction of what I want them to take a look at with all of the expertise at the table. I have them come back to me and make recommendations. We take a look at the recommendations, and most of the time that's what I build my program or my policy with. And then we go to the legislature and ask for it to go through the process once again. And if we're successful in getting that passed, like we have a new children's mental health system today that they had talked about for years. It's why our Future Ready Iowa initiative surpassed the goal with 2 years earlier than expected. And so I think that's a process that's worked for us, and it's a process that we're going to continue to utilize.
Governor Branstad asked David Fisher to head a commission
Yeah.
in the 1990s. As you look at that, what else are you asking these people to do that wasn't already asked?
Well, that was in the 1990s, and it's 2025. So I mean, whoa! Even though government hadn't been the structure hadn't been assessed or looked at in 40 years. That's crazy. How long would you be in business
Not
if
very
you
long.
waited 40 years to take a comprehensive review of how you're doing business? It's crazy. And the thing is, so we just have so many antiquated systems. Getting IT into one department that was spread across 20 different agencies. Think about that. When we had that cyber attack with CrowdStrike, because of what we've done and bringing all of that expertise together in one place, we were able to get Iowa up and going after lunch. Some of these states were out for weeks, and businesses that weren't able to do that. And we did that even with a very antiquated system. So, if I could get the federal government to actually sign off on an RFP in a timely manner, then we could bring better technology into these agencies. That's why it has to be across the board. It has to be local, state, and federal. We've got, our SNAP error rate isn't where it should be. We're not doing it in a timely manner. You know why? We have about 400 people looking at data from 17 different points trying to analyze it on a spreadsheet. And we have such an outdated system, and I have asked to upgrade the system, which multiple states have done. On that request for an RFP for a year. That's just to say I can go out for an RFP. And in the meantime, this is the prior administration, this is who I've been doing. In the meantime, they fine us. They fine the state because our numbers aren't where they're supposed to be, and we're not getting it done in a timely manner, and I'm trying to fix it. And they can't even say, oh yeah, go out for an RFP. They've been sitting on it for a year, and then guess what? Once I go and get the RFP, I have to go back to them. 3 years on managed care organization rates. The list goes on and on and on and on. So we need to work with the federal government, we need to work with local government, figure out how we can streamline all of our processes. And if there's duplication happening, well, guess what? Then that's a cost to the taxpayers. It's not 3 different entities. Bureaucracy it's not their money, it's not the Congress's money, it's not the governor's money, it's not the legislator's money, it's the taxpayers' dollar, it's their money. And we have an obligation to be responsible to them.
Governor, will the task force have unlimited access to any and all personnel or financial?
Well, you can't. We're not the federal government, and we're not $36 trillion in debt. They're $36 trillion in debt. They're adding $2 trillion a year. That's children. My gosh, what we're saddling them with is ridiculous. So they got to try something different, because independently they didn't decide that we need to do government better. They doubled down on doing it just the same way. So I don't know what their processes are out there. In Iowa, we have a different process. We balance our budget. we have a surplus. We're saving taxpayer dollars by continuing to look how we can make it more efficient and more effective. And sometimes that money goes back into the programs to citizens who need it instead of up here with the bureaucracy and the admin. I mean, 25% admin cost? Nuts. I mean, that's ridiculous. It goes on the ground or it goes back to the taxpayers. It's a different process.
Will the Iowa Task Force have access?
They'll have access to the agencies.
Okay.
And they can ask them questions. Yeah,
Medical records?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. No, I don't know about that. But they will be able to talk to the agencies. They can talk about maybe their overall budget for different items. So they're not going to get into personal information. Again, we're at a different place. I'm asking them to look at programming, to look at how we can use AI, to look where there's overlap. And so you have to have conversations with the agencies. But my agencies, with the alignment, I wish you could sit in on a cabinet meeting. It is a different day. They are innovative. They are excited. That their employees are excited. We have more upward mobility than we have ever had before. There's more opportunity to bring all of those IT people together. I can scale them when there's an issue, like with CrowdStrike. We're just operating at a different capacity. Still, we can be better, but I mean, and that's what I want them to look at. Look at. Oh, there's a whole host of things. Again, I'm not going to start listing them out because then I start narrowing in what I want them to do.
As you were in D.C. last week, you got to sit there and experience a bunch of political speeches.
Yeah.
As they kind of devolved many.
Well, that's yeah. Yeah.
Other than coming home with a headache.
Yeah.
Coming home with, I know that was a chance for you to share a bunch of stuff, but was there anything you picked up out there?
It's done. I mean, that was 4 hours that I sat there, and I went out to talk about policy and to talk about efficiency and to talk about what a small state in this country did. We are a small state, 3.2 million people, $10 billion budget, and yet we were able to save Iowans $217 million in 18 months, and there's so much opportunity there. So, it turned out to be a bunch of grandstanding and cheap shots, and it was a little bit, it was discouraging. I mean, I did appreciate, the Democrat, I said that in my comments, that ranking member, Congressman Conley, actually praised Iowa several times, praised me for the great things that we've done and done it in a nonpartisan manner. So, I mean, we got to talk a little bit about that, and I appreciated him recognizing that over and over. But, it's just, you can't play gotcha, and we don't do that here in Iowa for the most part, and I'm grateful for that. I really am. It was, I don't know if we got a lot of Democrats that signed off. We got a couple, so it was the realignment was nonpartisan, and, I work really hard to do that. The children's mental health, every legislator voted for that. Future Ready Iowa, every legislator voted for that, both Republicans and Democrats. So dysfunctional out there. Ugh. Was happy to come home. We'll just say that. I was really happy to come home and, hug Kevin and my grandkids and watch my Chiefs go down last night. I don't know what happened there, but whoa.
Governor, I was happy to see the Chiefs.
Yeah. I know there's two sides to that story, right?
You mentioned too, not narrowing down what you want the task force to do, but what were conversations like once the consolidation happened of your cabinets to where, these cabinet heads,
Yeah.
you were like, okay, we can get a task force going where we are today. What were some points where you're like, okay, this could be looked into? Not without directing specifically what you want the task force to look into, but I guess what were some anecdotes that you had seen once it was consolidated?
Well, like it's kind of what I'm talking about. AI is here. It is here, and that's all anybody's talking about. And so we need to think about how responsibly we can use that. How can it help with some of the customer service things that we do? How can it help our processes to make us even more effective and more efficient? And there is a ton of opportunity. I mean, they're talking about doctors using AI as part of their practice to help them. So think about what we could do with that from a government perspective, or how do we take advantage of just technology is advancing at such a rate? How do we really think about how you train your workforce with AI, and can it be more specific? Can it really take a look at what the processes are and individually put together a workforce program for that individual so that he can advance and in his career and really take advantage of the technology. I'm really interested in things like that. And then again, I want to look, I was very specific at 37 Cap. I mean, when we would meet for a meeting, I didn't know sometimes everybody in the room. And it was just a good, that's too many direct reports to one person. And so, but we looked internally. I didn't really go to federal and I didn't go to local. So now we kind of branch out and work with them. They'll be on the task force, but how do we take that to the next level so everybody is internally looking at their processes and figuring out how we can strategically work together?
How can you use this task force and recommendations as you try and get that state income tax?
Well, we're right, exactly, because I think oh gosh, I can never think of the name of that, CSI. Common Sense Institute, yeah, and we would say this too, because I said, it's not just about cutting taxes, you have to be able to sustain them. And because of what we were able to do with realignment and some of the savings, because this will be ongoing in some of them, and if we continue that, I was actually able to expedite the flat tax a year and brought it in a year earlier, because if you remember right, in the fourth, I don't know which tax cut it was, but that was not supposed to go into effect until January 1 of 2026. But because we're experiencing some growth, because we've been judicious in our expenditures and by the savings that we put in place, we were able to implement that a year early.
Question for Emily, maybe just about the structure and where you start here. I mean, you're looking at counties, cities, the state. Do you have any ideas on look at this part of government, you look at this part of government, or is everyone going to be working on everything?
No, that's a great question. And in the executive order, Governor Reynolds did lay out 3 different topics that we will be focusing on. But also, we'll be looking at just where are the hurts, habits, and hangups. Those are the ones that, like, every employee has something that they have to deal with. Then that's some areas where we can make it better. So we'll be looking at the three ones that Governor Reynolds did, but also just asking the people that out there, what are your suggestions too? So we have that X account that we'll be receiving, as well as a public portal. So we want to listen first, speak second. We have 2 ears, 1 mouth, and we plan to use it like that.
Just say why you want this. As the governor, open yourself up to, some criticism anytime you try to suggest changes, right? Like, why do you want to be part of this?
Well, I constantly support Governor Reynolds' vision, and she has been the right leader for Iowa. So number 1, that. So when she calls, I say, let's go. But also,
So far, yay!
But also, it just is ingrained in me. My father, Steve, at the manufacturing company, walks around with papers every day saying maybe we should switch this piece to this machine. We cannot keep saying we have solutions if they're not being sustained. And that's the trick here. When she was talking about the Fisher report, we still have to keep going back to that. So how can we do it innovatively and sustained so we don't have to be here again trying to do this another time? So happy to call when Governor Reynolds say so, but we can always do better.
I think too, one of the things, we'll operate a lot like we did with the Economic Recovery Advisory Board. So it'll be fairly small task force, like 15 to 20 members, but additional resources, really take that expertise and go out in the state and find it and bring that in. So hopefully they can do the same thing. Well, you're doing it by X and by the platform, but then in addition to that, if they want to bring additional people in to kind of walk through some ideas or to get some additional ideas, they'll have the flexibility to do that as well.
Governor, you mentioned in your congressional testimony that there wasn't any layoffs in your government
Yep.
reorganization process. Do you expect that to continue that way, or would you accept recommendations to reduce?
Well, we'll take a look at it. I don't think we can rule it out. It's not a family business. This is a government entity that is accountable to the taxpayers of Iowa. And, maybe we can do it through attrition, but we can take a look at that, but I'm not going to rule it out. But when we first started alignment, just because it was the first time that we had done it, and I did make the commitment that we will start originally without any layoffs. And that was a big deal to eliminate 600 open FTE positions that hadn't been filled in over a year. because what was happening, so that prevents you from being innovative or thinking about doing things differently, because it was kind of a slush fund that our different agencies could use. If they didn't fill that position that was sitting there, the dollars are allocated for it. And so when they would come to me with a program, and I'd say, I don't think so. You've got to put some KPIs or some key performance indicators on this program, or what are the metrics? Is it even working? Have you got the results that you were looking for? Which, by the way, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because we're changing the way we're doing business. We have to operate like a business. We reviewed 800 programs, and not one of them had a KPI, not one of them had any metrics, not one of them had an outcome attached to it, and that's crazy. And so that's part of the process. And in doing that, when you take away those access to dollars when they want to do a program and I say no, and then they all of a sudden will say, we've got the money. So it's like, oh, well, how do you have the money? We're just going to check that out. So it's part of the process.
Governor, shortly after you announced the state DOGE, the auditor had suggested that there were some responsibilities or invested in his office that were going to be replicated by county DOGE. I just wanted to give you a chance to.
No, I'm not sure what you're saying, but hey, we welcome everybody to the party. This isn't my party. This is Iowa taxpayers' party. So anybody that has an idea or anybody that has done something, let's celebrate it. Let's encourage it. So, that's fine. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. And like you said, we want to listen. We want as many Iowans involved as we can in the process, and so that's what we intend to do.
Will the task force meetings be open to the public, and will the report be made public?
Well, the report definitely will be made public, and I assume they will be.
Finalized of the 15, 20
I
members?
don't, but that'll be coming shortly because I want to get it going. So we're still making some calls and framing it up. So we got a fairly good idea, but we'll get that to you just as soon as we have it. So you guys, it'll be the next thing that we'll roll out, kind of your anticipated start date once we have it firmed up. So we'll get that information out to all of you once we have it.
What will the channel of communication be between Iowa DOGE and the federal DOGE? Will there be communication and work between the two groups?
Well, I hope there's some kind of, we're lucky because, we've got Senator Ernst, first of all, is very engaged in it, and she was actually doing this as a United States Senator, looking for inefficiencies and way that they could, save taxpayer dollars. So Senator Ernst is very involved in it. You have a great working relationship with her as well. And so is, I think, Marionette and Randy are both, they're both part of it also. So just from that connection, we'll have an opportunity, hopefully, to connect. And that's just a bigger issue. But again, like when we talk about the president's talking about block grants back to the states and the Department of Education and FEMA, those are areas that we can work on collaboratively to make sure that the policy is there, to make sure that the expectations are understood, and what that means for both federal government, state, and most importantly, the people we serve. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that. And then we'll hopefully, we'll have local government officials on the task force, which is really important, so that they can kind of be a conduit to local government, and then again help figure out ways. What are we doing that are we sending stuff to you, having you send it back? Are you waiting on us? Are we doing unfunded mandates? Are there ways we can relieve some of the pressure, and how can we work seamlessly together? I think one of the things you'll find is there's just I don't have the number in front of me, but a large number of 2080 agreements between local governments today, a large number. And so they're already working together in one form or another, and maybe there's opportunities that we can build on that.
Structurally, how are you asking local governments to find efficiencies? I mean, Cedar Rapids is going to have different needs than
Yep.
Sheldon.
Yeah, that's my pitch to the federal government. We're different than Texas. So that's why I'm not going in with any expectations. There are differences between I come from a rural, small community. I had to figure out ways to do more with less, just because I didn't have the resources a lot of times that some of the larger cities did. Like when we did a website and across the Treasurers Association, where my constituents could actually go online and pay their taxes and get their vehicle renewed. I couldn't afford my own website. I couldn't afford the banking infrastructure that went with that because I was a small agency. But by working together and standing up a state platform, it allowed small cities and counties to offer their constituency the same options that larger counties got to do without even thinking about it. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, and we did that a long time ago, like a long time ago.
We have time to take some on-topic questions now.
Kind of weaved them in or tried to, but
Are you eager, given your experience with the tornadoes, floods last year, to take over administering federal aid?
well, listen, I think it's something we should look at. It's not, so they're not just handing it all to us. The dollars will flow with it.
Well, they're talking
But-
about getting rid of FEMA.
But not the money and not the funding. I mean, but it's just, again, whoever said it, we're all so different. Every state is different. Every state has different challenges. Like with the flooding and the tornado, one of the things that I consistently heard from mayors and local government was, oh my gosh, I can't lose my people. If I lose my people, it erodes my tax base. It'll kill my Main Street. It'll kill our school districts. And so our number one priority was trying to figure out how we could stand up temporary housing for these individuals. Well, we had never used travel trailers before, to moving into the FEMA, like a modular unit, and then into their permanent home. But so we stood it up in like 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm just like verify, because sometimes I say months and they're like, Governor, it was 2 weeks that we stood this up, round the clock. But then what they didn't really understand as we were getting ready to transition them to the next step, that we're not able to stand them up. But I have a thing called winter. And so they don't get to be there for a year. And as the temperature started to drop, I couldn't get an answer on just let me get a mobile unit in, let me pre-stage it, we can do this. We have contractors. I can surge DAS, and I can surge Dial, and I can get inspectors up there, and I can get this done. But they have all these separate contracts with sometimes they're buddies, and it takes forever to get them in, and I'm always operating on their timeline, where we can do that more quickly, more efficiently. As we were watching the temperatures get colder, we've been blessed, but it's just different. And so it was a great program that we were able to utilize and stand up, but we had some restrictions to it. And it's just too bureaucratic. And here's something else. I don't even know who asked the question, but we need one single sign-in, one point of entry that goes across all of the agencies. We can do that probably here. I don't know what year it would happen at the federal level. Maybe now they can get it done. But then they have to do it for USDA. They have to do it for FEMA. They have to do it for SBA. None of the requirements are the same. Figure out what that initial sign-on sheet, what information you need. Let those poor people that are in distress and have lost everything, help them. Don't make them show up 5 different times and try to go through almost the same questions. This should be one sign-in across agencies, one time, and get them the services that they need. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There's a lot of examples, but that's a couple.
Governor, last Thursday, Speaker Pat Grass released his proposal for an increase proposal from 2%.
Yep.
You had laid out. I just wanted to get your reaction. He had kind of a menu of options.
Yep.
He said some superintendents had said, you have a way of trying to
Yep.
skin the cat, so to speak.
Yeah.
Tell me what your
Yeah, well, I'm not going to negotiate at the podium. That would not be a prudent thing for me to do. But I will tell you that I went in with 2%, and I also have a list of different things that we have continued to provide. Tenants list, and then we'll figure out what that looks like and what we can get through 2 chambers into my desk. So everybody's made their list, and now the next strategy is to come together and figure out what that looks like, how we can move forward with it.
Can I get your reaction to the Racing and Gaming Commission's decision to issue?
Well, I'm not going to weigh in. It went through the process. So you had an independent racing and gaming board that, based on data, made a recommendation. And then you had a Senate last week that said that they were not going to interfere with it. So those are the individuals that's how the decision got made, and it'll move forward from there. I do have one thing that I want to say since nobody asked it, because I think it's important that I clarify this. You know, I did go out to DC last week. Yeah. Kind of a little naive, I'll admit that, but I did go out to think that I would have an opportunity. It started with Chairman Comer calling us and saying, we have looked across this country, and we have not seen one state that has done what Iowa has done to the extent of what you have done. It is an incredible story, and we would love to have you come out and talk about it and really share with the Oversight Committee what's possible. So that's the kind of the pretense that I went out, and as I said earlier, that the Democrat ranking member multiple times said that Iowa has done great things and did it in a nonpartisan manner. He loved the process that we used. But as I said, it turned out to be a lot of grandstanding and cheap shots, and sometimes after 4 hours, you tune out the question. You don't actually hear what they're asking, because it's usually tied to 4 minutes of ranting and then a political question or a gotcha question that, oh, by the way, has to be answered with a yes or no. And if you try to clarify it or say what you're thinking about, they start screaming at you, I recall my time, which I didn't even know what that meant. So evidently it means you can't say anything, or you can't push back or give a little bit of an answer that puts things into context. So I want to be clear this morning that I absolutely do not think that Lutheran Services is a money laundering organization. They provide a whole to hundreds of thousands of people, and it's not just refugee resettlements. They help work with they do mental health work, they do foster care work, they make sure that our kiddos have the resources that they need to be successful. I have worked with them for years. They celebrate their 160th anniversary this year. We're going to be a part of it. I'm going to do a proclamation. So, you know, it was taken out of context, but I do believe, and what I was trying to say is that you can't start a holistic, complete review of government by taking things off of the table. That doesn't work. You don't make change, and you don't do disruptive things when you start deciding who it's going to apply to and who it's not. And I would say that Lutheran Services, with this review, they will underscore the great work that they have been doing, and that will come out in the report. But there is a lot of fraud and misuse of funds that is happening, bloated and grown. So I want to be clear that I support them, I support their work, and I always have been. And I didn't get the chance to say that. What I tried to say is when you take things off the table, it starts to dilute the whole process, and then nobody can really feel good about the results that they get. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear from the beginning, and I've had an opportunity to reach out to and make sure that they know that too. So thank you. I appreciate that.